20 years, browsers just displayed pages. Initially, it was just static text, then came dynamic content, but now AI browsers are able to take actions with your user's privileges. Teams are probably already asking for access, or they're just using it without asking. And your executive team will likely want an answer soon as well. So let's answer the question. Are AI browsers safe for the enterprise? Hey, I'm Chad Butler. I built security programs at companies like SAP, Disney, and Amazon, and I've spent some time recently looking into AI browsers. All right, so here's the TLDR. Agentic AI browsers can take multi-step actions with your user's privileges. And Gartner just advised most organizations to block them while the security controls catch up. Your goal is to determine how to adopt AI browsers safely, and I'm going to suggest that it starts with a controlled pilot, clear rules, and better monitoring. But first, let's dive into what changed and why this is relevant now. Traditional browsers display content, usually a mix of static and dynamic content, but agentic AI browsers can act on that content. They can scrape content, fill forms, click buttons, and move between tabs. And this all happens inside an authenticated session with your user's effective permissions. That's the fundamental shift. But why does that matter? To answer that question, let's look at prompt injection. Now, we've probably all seen silly examples of prompt injection, modifying the output of some LLM process. Someone adds a line of text to their LinkedIn profile, an AI sales tool reads that line, and then adds something silly to every message it sends. And there's certainly more dangerous examples of prompt injection to be found. But with AI browsers, prompt injection can manipulate actual actions inside live sessions with access to your apps, internal tools, corporate data, or whatever your browser has access to. Unfortunately, most AI browsers today don't offer enterprise logging, SIM feeds, or centralized policy management. That means you can't see what's happening, you can't enforce data controls, and you can't respond to incidents the way you do today. For example, OpenAI's Atlas is explicitly out of scope for their SOC 2 and ISO programs. It doesn't emit compliance API logs, it doesn't support region pinning or e-discovery feeds, and that's a showstopper for a lot of industries. So you have a few paths you can take. Let me walk through each one. You decide which one makes sense for you. Option 1, you can outright block AI browsers at the network and endpoint level. So this is probably the right call for you if you're in a highly regulated environment, or you don't have the monitoring infrastructure to detect misuse, or your risk tolerance is low and you can afford to wait for enterprise controls to catch up. The trade-off is that your users will likely ask why they can't use the tools they see their peers using. You're opting to intentionally accept slower adoption for predictable risk. Now, option 2 is to allow a small group to test AI browsers in low-risk workflows. Generally, you want to choose users working on things like research, docs, or internal comms, and you want to stay away from users working on things like finance ops, M&A, HR casework, or even executive assistants. You want to make sure there are some clear conditions in place. Things like clear acceptable use rules tied to your data classification, increased monitoring, and a periodic review of what's working and what's not. Now, the trade-off here is that you accept early stage product risk and visibility gaps, but you learn how to adopt safely before pressure forces your hand. Option 3 is to allow broader use, but only if you can close the control gaps first. That means centralized policy enforcement, logging that integrates with your SIM, DLP coverage that works with the AI browser's architecture, and data residency and retention controls that align with your policy. If you choose this path, you accept the cost of building custom tooling or waiting for vendor features that may not arrive on your timeline. You gain speed, but you own the risk of moving faster than the vendors can mature controls. So my recommendation is this. If you aren't explicitly prevented from using AI browsers, start with that controlled pilot. That's going to buy you some time as you build your tooling or wait for controls to mature. Now, the next thing you need to know about is how AI browsers implement human-in-the-loop controls. Most AI browsers offer some way to pause, interrupt, or approve actions. For example, OpenAI's Atlas browser also shows a first-run warning, and it lets you take over mid-task. Now, for me, agent mode felt a little reminiscent. It felt a lot like remote support sessions. You can see the cursor moving on screen, and you can take control at any time. But here's the problem with relying on that. It means your users have to be paying attention. In my career, I've learned a thing or two about trusting users to make the right decision. In a past life, I supported an application that used one-time passcodes sent via SMS. To log in, users would type their phone number and they'd get an SMS with their login credential. Every single text message included a warning. It said if anyone calls you asking for this code, it's a scam. It was crystal clear, and we were sure it would substantially reduce social engineering and fraud. We were wrong. It didn't. People still gave those passcodes away. They'd get an unexpected call from someone claiming to be from the fraud team, and people would willingly hand over that passcode, despite the fact that there was a warning one line above that in the SMS message. So you really can't count on users to babysit their AI browser and take control if it does something unexpected. So here's my suggestion of what to do during the next week, month, and quarter. For next week, run Shadow AI Discovery. You can use proxy, DNS, and other logs to find out who's already using AI browsers. You'll see user agent strings or destination patterns for browsers like Atlas or Comet. Send a targeted message to those users. I recommend a diplomatic approach. Acknowledge their intent to be productive, explain the risk plainly, and offer a path into an official pilot. The intent is to reduce unapproved usage and find voluntary candidates for your pilot. Then draft acceptable use rules and make sure to map AI browser tasks to your data classification scheme. It's also a good idea to generate a simple list of data and tasks that are never appropriate for AI browsers. Next, here are some things you can do in the next month. Launch a controlled pilot. Pick a small number of users in low-risk workflows, set clear boundaries, and monitor actively. Our main goal is to find out if pilot participants realize actual productivity gains without security incidents. Next, conduct a gap analysis. Compare your required browser controls against what the AI browser supports today. You should come away with a list of gaps and timelines for when you can revisit adoption. Finally, update threat models and incident response runbooks, add prompt injection, crosstab exfiltration, and agent misuse scenarios. Give your SOC analysts some help so they know what to look for and how to respond. Finally, here's some things you can do in the next quarter. Define adoption phases. You may progress through the phases, start with blocking, move to pilot, then limited adoption, followed by general adoption. And you map the controls required to move between phases. The goal here is to gain executive alignment and a decision tree that isn't based on pressure. Next, build SOC detection signals. These should look for things like rapid multi-step web actions, unusual destination spikes, and strange form submissions. A good goal here is to make sure that at least one alert fires during the pilot and confirm that your team knows how to triage it. Finally, add a rogue browser agent scenario to your next tabletop exercise. This will help confirm that your IR team has a repeatable process and that they know who owns the decision to contain and respond. Now, the most common pitfall here is waiting until pressure forces a rush decision. ChatGPT is already pushing users to download Atlas. If you don't have a plan, you'll end up approving broad adoption without the controls you need to manage risk. Build the plan now, even if the answer is not yet. That way, when the conversation suddenly shifts to how fast can we do this, you'll be ready with a safe, phased approach. Now, here's how I'd go about explaining this to my executive team and board. AI browsers are a new category of tool that can take actions on behalf of users, not just display information, but fill forms, click buttons, and move between systems. Gartner just advised organizations to block them while enterprise controls mature. The risks include limited visibility, weak isolation, and lack of centralized management. We're taking an intentional, controlled approach. A small pilot with clear boundaries, acceptable use rules tied to our data classification, and upgraded monitoring before broad adoption. That's going to allow us to learn safely, meet employee productivity expectations, and avoid the risk of unmanaged shadow AI adoption. All right, so if you're not already subscribed, go check out the Product Security Playbook newsletter. I recently published an executive briefing on this exact topic. You'll find a link in the description. As always, if you found this helpful, give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Also, please let me know what other topics you'd like to hear about. My goal with this is to provide content that helps you lead security programs without all of the heavy lifting required to stay up to date with every new technology change. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.